Friends, welcome to this new video. We're in the last episode of this 2024 and I hope you enjoy it until the end. First of all, I want to thank all of you for joining me throughout this 2024, which was quite a complicated year. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity to thank you for all the supportive messages, the good vibes, the gifts, and for supporting the channel's store, which was amazing and far exceeded everything we had expected. And I want to let you know that in February we're coming back with with new models and lots of amazing promotions and products that you can't miss. I also want to thank you for joining me on Quien Fue. We're also coming back with that in mid-January or early February. Amazing stories ahead. Subscribe now for upcoming spectacular content. Plenty to watch. And of course, I also want to thank all of you for being there in every episode, sending messages of support, leaving likes, and sharing. All of this is super important to me, and of course, it motivates me to keep going with this beautiful project, Nervustrack. Before we start, I want to wish you all very happy holidays. I hope you have a wonderful New Year's Eve with your family, friends, or however you like best. Have a great time. And I wish you all the best for this 2025. It's surely going to be a great year for everyone. And we will continue to be together with new and beautiful stories here on this channel. Friends, now I really say goodbye until next year. In this case, and as always, I send you all a big hug. Bye-bye. My name is Martin, I'm from Entre Rios, but for several years now I've been living in Salta, where I work as an art teacher. Today I want to tell you about a series of many experiences that make up a story that marked my life. Although, in fact, it also changed my partner's life, with whom I experienced all of this. I've always been someone interested in everything related to the paranormal, and not because of any particular experience. These are topics that intrigue me. I try to understand what's beyond what we consider normal or logical. I also want to clarify that beyond this need to know more, I never tried to get involved with games that summon entities or tried to do witchcraft or make any kind of pact whose outcome we don't know. I've always been someone who looked at all of this with a lot of respect because I understand that many times, even if we don't see certain things, they're there waiting to manifest themselves. In 2013, we came to Salta with my partner because at that time she had gotten a very good job opportunity. And since I wasn't going through one of my best moments at work, we decided to try and see if this would work. Although at first everything was perfect, over time the relationship started to break down little by little. Arguments would come up out of nowhere, arguments that didn't make any sense. And no matter how much one of us tried to fix things, the other at that moment, and I say this for both of us, would always go back to clashing, putting everything in crisis again.
Sometimes you think that's what fuels and takes over in this kind of presence. That's what you believe. I don't know if it's really like that.
In this place where we settled, it was an apartment in one of the monoblock buildings on Ejército Argentino Street. The building was A and the apartment. We're going to leave it anonymous, mainly because a family probably lives there now, and we don't want to cause any trouble by telling this story. It was spacious, nice and comfortable, and we never imagined that during that first year we would experience one of the strangest moments of our lives. It was more than 12 months in which we experienced dozens of paranormal situations that not only left us surprised, but there were moments when the terror completely overwhelmed us. A particular detail, as many of you are likely thinking about it. In northern Argentina, religious beliefs are very strong. People are very devoted in these matters. But let me clarify that in my case, I wasn't at that time and I'm still not today. I'm not in fact very religious when it comes to the church and everything it preaches. So from the very beginning, I could tell you that suggestion didn't play a part here. Mostly also because even though paranormal topics, as I told you, have always attracted me, back in those years of my life I was focused on other priorities, on my job, my personal life, my love life, and I wasn't reading or watching anything related to these topics. My first doubt was whether these fights, which started coming out of nowhere, were started by this bad energy in the place. Or maybe they helped to amplify all of that and gave it a force that ended up getting out of control? I still ask myself this question to this day. The first experience I remember in this apartment was one morning when I was in my room, completely alone. My partner was working with a colleague in the living room, and at one point I felt a hand give me 2 pats on my shoulder. I was wearing a jacket, and even the fabric itself sank in when I felt this. It was something tremendous because the feeling was a mix of fear and surprise. I also admit that I didn't take it as something bad. I thought it was quite the opposite. Maybe it was a family member who was encouraging me in this big life change we were facing.
That was the first thing, let's say, and it kept progressing. These things, although I don't know if I should rank them, but they were progressive, with things becoming more visible or hearing things that weren't common before.
On one occasion, I fell asleep on the living room couch. And it was when I woke up in the middle of the night that I saw very clearly 2 shadows standing in the hallway. They even moved to the side and I stopped seeing them, but within seconds they would appear again. This happened for several nights, where they could be seen in different corners of the house. They were 2 shadows that, because of their size and shape, looked like human beings, but if you turned on the light, there was absolutely no one there, and this was what scared me the most. Fortunately, they never approached, and nothing else occurred during that time. I should clarify that I wasn't experiencing sleep paralysis. In all those moments, I was perfectly conscious and could move freely. But the thing is, everything kept escalating steadily and without any kind of pause. A few months after we arrived, my partner got a call, and unfortunately, it was to inform her that her dad had passed away. It was a huge blow for her, and then came everything that comes with saying goodbye to a loved one. While we were in the apartment and getting back to normal life, we decided to adopt a kitten. First of all, so my partner would feel accompanied since she loved animals, and also to bring a little joy to the house. An animal is always a source of happiness in a family as long as you treat them with the love and respect they deserve. As the weeks passed, we noticed something strange. The cat behaved a bit strangely on some days or some mornings. There were many times when, taking pictures of him with the cameras we had back then, a sort of cloud would appear above his head or beside him. It didn't have any particular shape, but it was something that really caught our attention. Unfortunately, I don't have any to show you right now, but they were very obvious. And it was a surprise that when we showed it to friends and acquaintances, many, even those from Salta, agreed that it was an entity or also a goblin. I don't know if that's how it was, but that's what they told us. And another detail was that many times, maybe during a nap, I felt like someone was walking on the bed or sitting down. And the thing is, it was something small. It wasn't the weight of an adult. And also, of course, you could hear it walking in the hallways throughout the whole apartment. It was incredible. That's when the theory about goblins became a bit more relevant for us, even though we still didn't fully believe in their existence. The thing was that beyond these isolated situations, what happened to me was that during some early mornings, while I was catching up on work in the dining room, I had to leave. I had to leave everything and go to the bedroom. Do you know why? Not only could you hear those footsteps I told you about, but the shadows would also appear again, and there were little lights that came out of nowhere and would disappear. We both saw this, and at different times of the day. There were also noises that couldn't be explained. They were heard almost constantly and at all times. It was really strange, and always, almost always, after 2 or 2:30 in the morning.
And 2 of the strongest things that happened to us, which we could say were all in all shared. One was, well, it was around September. Around that time, we were watching a program on television. A quiet moment of being together. And we were both dressed, sitting on this couch, where I used to sleep watching television, covered with a comforter that was pink with some flowers in shades of brown. We were relaxed, talking. My partner leaned against the wall while I sat on the edge of the bed. So, well, I get up to look for some things, and when I come back to fix the comforter because it was wrinkled. A flower that was at my partner's feet with those colors I mentioned had something camouflaged on it. I say camouflage because we hadn't seen it before. That's when I reached out my hand to straighten the comforter. It was simply a ball of hair with no head, legs, tail, or any other features. It was like a small ball, let's say about the size of a handball, that when I reached out my hand, it quickly slipped away and went toward the wall. But it not only moves toward the wall, it shrinks and vanishes completely. And I thought, well, with so many things that had happened to me, I figured, well, I'm just imagining it, that's all. And then my partner says, what was that? Did you see it? Oh, it was something with hair. And I say, you saw it too? And I run to the bed and there's nothing, there was nothing, but it was like, it seemed magical. I could tell you that it shrank and disappeared. I mean, what a strange thing, right? An animal doesn't just shrink, an animal just sneaks away and you can even hear the noise. But this was really strange.
Little by little, these situations kept increasing and the discomfort in our relationship did too, until we finally decided to separate. I made the decision to leave the apartment, and from what I understand, after some conversations with my ex-partner. After a short time, things calmed down until absolutely nothing else happened. I don't know how things are in that place right now. What was the reason that started it and what made it calm down? I don't know. The thing is, when I left, this didn't end, because the paranormal events somehow continued, although in a much milder way. Which made me wonder if there's something that might be with me. Or do I just have some particular sensitivity that attracts these energies and invites them to manifest whether I'm open to it or not? I'm Natalia, and I want to tell you something we experienced on November 13th, 2024 at our house in 20 de Junio, Buenos Aires province. It was my birthday that day, and since it was a weekday, it was hard for many family members to come over, even for us too, because we had to go to work the next day. So I decided to celebrate it on Saturday with some friends and family like always, but that Wednesday we didn't want it to be just another ordinary day. So with my husband and my 14-year-old son, we decided to have a small celebration at home, something simple but the three of us having fun together. The plan was to have a barbecue, but in the end, because of time and being tired, we made some pizzas and ate ice cream. We set everything up in the garden to eat outside and we played some music. And honestly, it was turning out to be one of the best birthdays of my life, one of the nicest. It was just the three of us, relaxed, eating something delicious at home. The weather was perfect, it was magical, and even more special because at one point we had already finished eating and we were deciding whether to serve the ice cream or wait a bit. When something happened. We have a pretty big backyard and we don't have any neighboring houses. In fact, our house is in a pretty desolate area, you could say, and therefore there's very little light pollution. For this reason, we love being able to see the stars whenever we can. Even my son has a telescope and he always shows us everything he finds. And that night, like I told you, was different, and not just because it was my birthday. The three of us were lying on some lounge chairs, talking, with all the lights turned off so we could see the sky better. And suddenly we see a small light approaching from the south. At first we thought it was a plane. That was the most normal thing to think, but it wasn't, because at one point when it was almost right above our heads, two more lights came out of this one and positioned themselves on each side. They were white and surprisingly not shiny. And I say this because we started to see how they were getting closer, descending of course, and we saw that their shape was perfectly spherical. The light they emitted didn't dazzle us at all. I couldn't tell you what their size was because they were at a considerable height, but it was really impressive that the three of them started to move independently, creating a sort of pattern with each change of direction they made. It was almost 30 or 40 seconds in which they constantly repeated the same movements over and over again. Then they came back together and disappeared in a millisecond. And from what we understood, heading east because it was so fast that we weren't sure. The particular detail was that after this, and for a long time, there was a very strange smell in the place, like talcum powder with a metallic hint or something similar. It was something we couldn't quite figure out. My son tried to film it with his phone, but honestly, nothing came out at all. And the most amazing thing was that the next day, talking to a neighbor who lives about 40 meters from our house, I told her about this. I asked her if they had seen anything. She said no. Do you know what happened? There was a power outage at that time. It affected quite a few houses but not the whole town. And after a few minutes it came back again, as if nothing had happened. We didn't notice because, as I mentioned, we had everything turned off so we could watch the stars. But that day at 10:50 at night, something happened in our house, which showed us that, obviously, and as hard as it is to believe, there are other intelligences. There is something else that we still don't know.